Hello, this is Greg Allison with Galactic Greg's coming to you on 31 March 2021. Time on deck is 03:5300 hours Central Daylight Time, the wee hours of the morning. And I haven't been to bed yet. Sometimes it takes me a little extra to bring you stories considering I have 2 YouTube channels. Not a problem, because this is a story that's worth hearing. I want to talk to you about spaceships, starships of SpaceX. Now, what we know now is Starship's serial numbers 8, 9, 10, and 11 have all gone to rocket heaven. Unfortunately so, but that's part of rocket development. As you may be aware, in the early days of rocketry, there was a whole lot of rockets going boom. And this is a very ambitious engineering exercise that is being undertaken by SpaceX with Elon Musk driving it. But I'm going to offer some recommendations. I'm going to offer 2 recommendations that I think would definitely help this program. And we're going to review the video. We're going to review just snippets of it. According to fair use, where I look at just snippets of video and comment upon it as we go. And we're not going to look at the whole thing, just a few little snippets. And I'm going to show you some other articles. And we're going to talk about quantity distance and the debris that's flown out, because I did a video, and I'll show you, over a year and a half ago, that talked about, asked the question, will SpaceX nuke Boca Chica? And I was talking about the Soviet N-1 rocket and how it threw debris 6 miles. Well, SN-11 just threw some debris 5 miles. Not, a complete cone, total coverage, of course, but this vehicle was mostly on fuel when it crashed. It hit the ground pretty hard. Apparently left a crater, as judging from the ejectile that came up from it. So it hit the ground pretty hard. But my friends, yeah, rocketry is a rough business sometimes. So we're going to talk about quantity distance. We're going to talk about safety and quality assurance and quite a few things along those lines, because that's what I do. Some people have, once upon a time on one of my videos, who's this newcomer? Guys, I have got decades of experience developing rockets and spacecraft. And I have been working for almost 16 years in safety and mission assurance on the avionics of rockets. I have developed rockets myself. This is why I have a Space Pioneer Award from the National Space Society. Look it up in Wikipedia. It's all place you'll find me in Wikipedia. Greg Allison, Space Pioneer Award for entrepreneurship. Because not only I do rockets in my day job, I did them on my side time too. I actually started companies. Yeah, I was New Space before there's a word for it. So yeah, I've got a long legacy in rockets, rocket development, space policy, running the halls of Congress. I've been quite involved in space for a long time. I just backed off some in the past 10 years on my side ventures. Okay, except I switched. I went more to organic stuff. But I still work space, still a passion. All right, so let's get into it. Oh yeah, by the way, I'll bring you a lot of videos. In one of my videos, I'll bring you wisdom from the decades of experience I have, with a sense of humor. I don't take things, I don't go the every nut and bolt of every little version of every starship. There's guys like, What About that covers that. He's got a great channel. Go see him. He does have a great channel. I get a kick out of him. But, these things blow up. So, and it changes constantly. So, that's just not my cup of tea to get all involved in that level of detail. Because besides, I have a day job and 2 YouTube channels. So the other one actually pays me some money. And I've got a worm farm, commercial garden, and aquaponics greenhouse. I'm a busy puppy. All right, all that said, we're going to talk about these things. So first and foremost, recommendation 1, which apparently Elon Musk, it may already be taken to heart, because he's calling for engineers to come to work down in Boca Chica. He just put out a fresh call for that after this SN-11 crash today. But he obviously, SpaceX needs to redouble on the quality assurance program. You had a fire in you had a fire in that engine too. I'll show you some video of that in a minute. And you had a lot of problems with your systems. And I highly encourage you to have a much more robust quality assurance program to ensure what you're actually putting out. I mean, your designs may be good, but there may be flaws in what actually gets put in the systems. So, and of course the designs probably need to be a little more robust, but everything is not hardware design. A lot of it's operational operations. A lot of it is design margin. Now, that's design too, but design margin takes many different forms. And safety, the key things that we look at to increase safety are things like redundancy, or some things that don't make sense to make redundant, like you don't need two structures for like tanks, two walls. You don't need, two bell nozzles on your rocket engine, but you might build in design margin. You might make it thicker. You might make it more resilient to temperatures. That's design margin. You can when you're trying to mitigate the hazards, you may do it also with operational workarounds. That's one of the last things you do, but it's one of the things that you can do. The first thing is to prevent the design the hazard out if you at all can. Well, we have an obvious clear hazard in this landing operation of the Starship. And I'm going to use my little analog here, my little Nerf rocket. I'm not spending the money on all these models that some of the channels are spending. There's one, I don't have it, and two, hey guys, come on. This chain, they're cute, they're beautiful, but the design of the Starship is going to change a lot. And I'm really enthusiastic for this program and hope that it's taking people to Mars really soon. But let's be frank, there's going to be a lot of design changes, and that's evident just of what they're doing today, because there's a lot to learn, and that's why they're doing these test flights. It's to learn, and I congratulate them for having the fortuitous and the guts to do this kind of operations and test and be able to weather through the failures. Because the way you learn things is you break things and blow things up. That's the best way to learn anything in the world. And there's nothing will humble you like rocket development, and I ought to know. Been there, done that. Oh yeah, by the way, I've also got the wreckage of the DCX rocket in my backyard. Yeah, that was a forerunner of the rockets that flew up and down and hopped around and did several flights and were reusable until some technician didn't follow the procedures for connecting up the leg deployment hydraulics. I also was quite involved in that program, getting approved politically, and for a while was in their Hall of Fame. Okay, all that said, so what happens is, we get the launch and you get the flight, and then you get the belly flop, this thing's coming in and flying, coming down, as you all know, and they've been real good at that. I was really impressed at how well the belly flop has been executed, because that part of the flight has been flawless, and it's brought them back almost every time, except maybe the previous flight, right to where they expected it to land at. And so the belly flop procedure, which is one thing I was concerned about at the beginning, because it hadn't been tried, worked pretty good. It's that transition, as we all know, that's the problem. And of course, the first of the suspect was getting the fuel down to the injector heads and the rocket engines. Of course, when you make any sudden transition, you're going to get sloshed too in your tank. And that can be a problem. That can be a problem with throwing your CG around. That can be a problem with getting the fuel down there, with it having cavitation, air bubbles, whatever. There's a lot of issues that could happen when you create a slosh pattern with a liquid fuel. When you make a transition from, horizontal to vertical real fast. That's what they make, a real fast transition. They come in and make that fast transition, and they try to come down. My problem with it is this: they have very little time. They make a transition, and then they try to stick a landing real fast. They try to stick it just as fast as possible, like this, and then real quick. And by the time they're almost there to land. And now for just efficiency of fuel, that would be the ideal operation if you can do that. And saving fuel is paramount in rocket development, because especially if it's landing fuel, because that's fuel that does not add to payload. In fact, it's going to subtract quite a bit from payload. And also, you got to remember, most of the fuel in the rocket goes to lift and fuel. Most of the weight of your rocket is fuel. You take your Saturn V, it's like 6.5 million pounds, and almost 6 million pounds was fuel. So that's what we call mass fraction. So the higher the proportion of fuel to the weight of the system, the more efficient it is. That's how one of the measures of efficiency of rockets, having a high mass fraction, which is the ratio of fuel to the ratio of the rocket weight, total weight of rocket and fuel. Now, all that said. So you really don't want to have to use a lot of fuel, and using fuel for landing, that's one of the hits that you take. But they're choosing that over more heat shields, maybe, or parachutes. All that stuff has weight and operational complexities. Will the parachutes deploy right? Remember all the time it took them to get the chutes right in Dragon capsules. Took a while, but they got it. We hope. So far it's worked. But in this case, you may have to add a little design margin to this. And there's a couple reasons for that, and why you really probably do want to do it when you go operational long term. For one, when you're coming back in and you're trying to stick it real fast, you don't have any margin. If it fails, there's no workaround. There's nothing to work with. There's no recovery. Nothing you can do with TVC. You're down and crashing. It's over. If you give yourself a little more time, you're going to have to burn more fuel, because if you're not burning fuel, you're dropping and accelerating. That you don't want to do. So you got to burn fuel. If you make this maneuver a little higher up, you're going to have to burn more fuel. But it buys you time to get the engine settled down, to get the fuel settled down, and get everything right. And it's just design margin. Putting more fuel in to start with gives you more operational flexibility as you land. So that's design margin in a different way. This operational workaround and design margin combined. That's what that is. And I would highly recommend you look real hard at that, SpaceX and Elon Musk, because I think that may be one of your solutions, in addition to the quality assurance, and maybe get you some more safety guys too. And reliability, safety, reliability, quality assurance. That's 3 separate disciplines, by the way. But again, make the turn a little higher up, give yourself more margin, bite the bullet for the extra fuel expense, and it gives you a little bit more operational margin and fuel to handle that landing. Of course, you don't want to have fuel left over when you land, if you have, but not too much, because one, that's inefficient. 2, it's explosive. Lord knows we've seen the explosive results there at the landing pad. They're mostly unfueled rockets, by the way, but they still have enough fuel to be quite explosive. Which comes to another thing. What happens, of course, if you crash on ascent with a fully fueled system, especially when it's not just Starship, but you include Super Heavy, the whole stack. This is my analog of Super Heavy, and this is my analog of Starship with these Nerf rockets, okay? Hey, I like to have a little fun, but it still gives you the same idea. You get a big booster on the bottom, and you get your Starship on top, right? It don't look like it too much, but yeah, it's kind of analogous. You know what I mean. That's the whole thing. It's just to get the idea across. So here's the thing. Saturn V was deemed to go off, if it were to go off on a pad, would have had the power of a small atom bomb. The Russian N-1 rocket, which went off the 3rd of July, 1969, went off with the power of a small atom bomb. It flung debris 6 miles. Probably a significant amount of debris. I'm going to show the videos of the debris from SN11. SN11, I don't know what's going to be an SN12. They're talking about SN15 next. So I'll show you that. And I'm going to show you some of the other video in a second. But 6 miles, see, we have a term in safety engineering and ordnance also called quantity distance. It's the distance that it's safe to be away from a particular explosive. It's how far you expect it to fling debris. And to protect anything within that quantity distance, you have to come up with berms. When von Braun was testing his Redstone rocket, he had a bunker he tested it from. It's right there. I can do video from that bunker. I can show it to you sometime. But he had a bunker that he tested from. And, same way when he first started launching down at the Kennedy Space Center. And, even the launch complex at the Kennedy Space Center has blast doors. They got these doors that can shut on it. And it's 3 miles away from the pad. A lot of people go out there, stand outside in the viewing area for those rockets 3 miles away. It's 3 miles from pad 39A. But 39B, where SpaceX is setting up there now, is 7 miles away. That's a lot more comfortable. But you never know. A rocket can go errant. It can become a lawn dart. You're at risk if you're in any of those areas. Of course, NASA don't want to lose, of course, their crew, They don't want to lose their vehicle. They don't want to lose their launch assets or anything in their facilities. You know, the further away, you know, the more they hope to protect things. But they do consider more acceptable that they lose stuff within their facility than what happens to civilian property outside. You know, for testing purposes, Stennis Space Center in Mississippi has like a huge radius miles around that if you build a barn, you can't build certain wall. You got to have, it's got to be like open air, open walls, you know, just for acoustic pressure for miles around. And the boosters that tested, their biggest thing was the S1C stage, which was the Saturn V first stage, which developed, you know, 7.5 million pounds of thrust. Also tested at Huntsville. That's nothing like what's going to be coming out of the Super Heavy. Oh yeah, and by the way, one of the complications of the N1 rocket that they believe caused it to fail was that it had 30 engines, and they thought that was too complex. But you might be aware, Super Heavy is going to have 35 Raptor engines there, 35. A few more than N1. Hopefully they know how to handle that now. I mean, even the Falcon Super Heavy has quite a few engines on it too. So they maybe they're mastering that now. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. You know, you got a lot of acoustics and things going on. You get all that complexity there, but the Russians just couldn't master it. It was the Russians always did rockets with lots of engines back in the day, but that was too much for them. But we do have better computer programs and software in the simulation today, right? Of course, you know, in my area we call simulations, we know darn good, but occasionally sometimes are useful if done right. So, all right, let's get into it. I'm going to cover some videos and websites. I'm going to show you a few things here. We're going to do a share, and we'll just kind of walk through some of these things. And let's see, where are we at? Oh yeah, by the way, just to show you, I actually did video from SN10. That's me up here. So I did video from SN10, but I never posted it. You know, I talked a little bit from some other video here, and I had several snippets to it, but I never posted any of that. Just time, and hey, you know, it was same thing. It just happened 2 more times previously, and just like, okay, there's not a whole lot of novelty in crashing other than that SN10 at least landed before it blew up. And it was leaning over. But SN11 rose out of a thick fog. You really couldn't see the launch, and it crashed in a thick fog. You couldn't see the crash, but you could see the debris. I'm going to show you some of the debris being flung from it. And before that, we're just going to kind of walk through some articles here and some videos. And that's not the one I wanted to go to. Let me kill that. Didn't even want to show that. Hang on, guys. I just clicked on the wrong thing. Here we go. There's another little channel y'all can subscribe to. I am going to mute the video audio, and we're just going to talk through it. And we're just going to skip around here a little bit, showing the launch. And why is it black? Here we go. We're going to see an engine fire develop up here in a little bit. This is engine 2. See, that fire should not have been there. So this engine obviously had some kind of problem. That's all I want to show you in this video. It's the only thing worth looking at. Like I said, this is fair use type coverage here. I'm not playing their audio. And I'm going to skip over to another one. Oops, did I unshare it? Hang on, guys. Oh, I see. It's a screen thing here. So it's going to blow this up. This is NASA space flight. Yeah, I figure if they're going to take NASA's name, you know, NASA's public. These guys really aren't. I had a kick out listening to these guys. They giggle and cut up so much. Kind of fun to hear. But we're not going to listen to them now. We're just going to look at this video. Watch this, guys. They're about to go in here and do a little replay. This is after the event, after the crash. They're about to do a little replay. Here we go. So what we're going to see is the screen brighten up. That's the landing explosion. Apparently she hit the ground really hard. We should see that any moment now. We're going to see a flash. Then we're going to see debris. We're going to see a bunch of debris flying, and we're going to see dirt flung up from the debris that hits the ground in front of this camera. This camera's across the street from the test complex, by the way. It's not that far away, but there's a lot of debris flung from this crash. So you got to wonder what kind of damage was. So there it goes. It blows up right there. So you can't even see it. It's so foggy. You couldn't see the launch. You couldn't see the landing. All you see is the detonation. Watch. Here starts the debris. Bam, bam. Look at the big pieces. That's big chunks. Look at the dirt thrown up. This camera gets knocked by some of it. They're still falling. Still falling. Knocking dirt high as that trail. So you hit the camera. Part of the tripod because the camera's still working. Look at there's some big chunks. There's chunks falling everywhere around there. You would not wanted to have been in that area that close to this rocket. You would not have wanted to have been there, my friends. And this is a mostly unfueled upper stage that this went on with. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. I just wanted to kind of give you a glimpse of what happened there. Now, just to kind of back up what I was saying, this was, well, SpaceX Nuke Boca Chica. This is in September 2019. I made this video. Here I talked about strengths and weaknesses of the Starship design and quite a few things like that. So you need to check this video out here. This one, I go in a little bit more detail of some things I've said here tonight, this morning. And when I covered this, you see me sitting there, and that is the structure of the inner tank of the DCX rocket that I'm sitting in my backyard. How many guys have got rockets in their backyard? That was a video where somebody, when I posted on one of the SpaceX sites, called me a newcomer. Ha ha ha! Funny. That's a funny greenhorn remark. Call me a newcomer. Oh well. God bless his heart. All right, let's go to another side here. If yeah, my Zoom is fighting me every time I reach up to grab my every time I reach up, grab my tabs on Google, the Zoom comes down, covers them. Yeah, here's your 30 engines. It was on the Soviet N1 rocket. See, the second launch attempt, I think it was called L3, blew up on the 3rd of July, 1969. See, they were trying to beat us to the moon. They really were. At least with a fly around, there was no cosmonauts on that. At least not that we're told. There it is. Just before it went boom, guys. So, show you another picture of it. This is what it looked like on the pad. This is a mock-up of their N1 rocket. Both the N1. Now, here's the thing, guys. Both the N1 rocket and the Saturn V had something on the order of, you know, just under 6 million pounds of fuel, at least for the Saturn V total with all the stages. The total stack of Super Heavy and Starship is going to have something like 11 million pounds of fuel. Probably the design's going to change. And if you listen to me, it may have to go up a little bit to have that extra margin for landing. But guys, the Starship's going to have about twice as much fuel as the N1. That means bigger quantity distance. It's not 2 times the quantity distance. It doesn't scale linear. But look, we just flung debris 5 miles with SN11, and it was mostly unfueled, and it was just the upper stage coming. It just hit the ground hard, but also threw up a lot of dirt. So yeah, there's going to be a FAA investigation, of course. Congress has been coming down hard on the FAA for being easy on SpaceX. They think SpaceX is taking too much risk with the public. Here's a piece. This piece of debris right here was flung 5 miles. There may have been some debris flung. That's, you know, it looks like it's, you know, a piece of felt or something. It don't look like it's stainless steel, but there's a lot of those big chunks you saw flying in that previous video was stainless steel. because that's what this booster's made out of, mostly. That does look like felt there, but you'd think the heavier pieces would fling further than light pieces like that. And here we are, previous landing, SN10. It landed, but it was landing. You see that fire down there? It probably had a leak, still had fire, and eventually it went boom. She detonated. So, you know, they still got work to do. Still got a lot of work to do. And in recognition of that, Elon Musk is asking for more people. He's pleading for engineers, technicians, and other experts to move to South Padre Island to work for SpaceX. Hey, Elon, I just gave you perhaps the best recommendations you're going to get. Yeah, you're going to have hire people to implement them. Do I want to go there? Probably not. You would have to really talk sweet to me to get me down there, Elon. It's not for the lack of skulls. You know, it would take some moolah, some serious moolah to get me down there. So I have a lot going on up here. I want to stop the share. So there you go. Well, Elon at least recognizes he needs some people. Hopefully he realizes he's going to need some people on the quality side. As I said, you need to redesign your operations, and you have to include more design margin for fuel if you're coming in at higher altitude when you make the turnover, which I highly recommend you do that. And here's another reason I recommend that. The ultimate reason you want to do that, you need to do this reason. Even if you nail everything else, you still want to do it. The reason is you're wanting to develop this vehicle to fly point to point on Earth and carry a lot of people for oceanic flight. Guys, if you're coming into the ground like this and right the last second you're doing a pull-up and landing, holy smoke, everybody in your vehicle is going to be losing their in-flight peanuts. They're going to be chunking peanuts and cookies. and you'll have some potty passenger seats. Passenger seats will be potties. Yeah, it will be very, very ugly because people are going to lose it when you do a sudden yeah, and they're going to think they're going to die. Because you're coming into the ground, they're looking at that ground, holy smoke, what's happening? Last minute they're jerking around and everything. No, that's going to be too much for the passengers. The passengers are going to freak out. Even if they know it ahead of time, it's going to really freak them out. Yeah, they're going to be throwing up their toenails. That's my prediction. So, give your passengers a better flight. I think you need a smoother operation at the end, Elon. I think you need to work that into the design. It's got to be smoother. So the question is how is he going to further the test program? Because originally SN11 was going to be the last one to be tested by itself in this mode, and they were going to go straight to flying a full-up configuration of a Starship with a super heavy. At least that's what I was told. Now, it appears that now SN15 is going to be rolled out to fly a Starship again. That's what I'm understanding right now. That may or may not be correct, and that may or may not change. So I think these things may be in flux. Now, while it's possible that you could still test and develop landings when you're flying from a higher altitude, I think if it were me, I'd want to work all that stuff out before I went to full up. It may be more expensive because you got to build more vehicles and do more flights. But still, I think I would be trying to work that out first. But hey, Elon, it's your money. That's the beauty of it. It's your money. You can burn it any way you want to. But I am hopeful that he will get this worked out, because the promise of Starship is ultra cheap flight, revolutionizing space travel completely. But it's got to be safe. It's got to be safe. And it's going to take a lot of flights to establish that safety and confidence. And, if you think about Falcon, they've done a real good job with landing boosters, but they don't always land them. We just had one recently that didn't make a successful landing. And out of the number of flights they've had, that's pretty significant. If you're flying people on that and somebody's got to land, and you're losing them, that frequently, that would be that would cause some issues. That would be some problems for a lot of people. It certainly would be, orders of magnitude outside of anything except with the FAA. But anybody flying to space ought to know they're taking grave risk. I mean, after all, you're riding up on a controlled explosion into a vacuum where it's 250 degrees hot on one side and cold on the other side, above and below zero, and you're you got energy in every cubic inch is like a stick of dynamite, and then you come back and like a meteorite, and you've got to somehow dissipate all the energy and safely land. That is somewhat far removed from being trivial. And you have to optimize all your systems to do it, which means you got to cut weight as much as possible, cut fuel as much as possible, cut everything you can as much as possible. And yet you're operating in a high Q environment. No space flight is never going to be as safe as air travel. Never, won't ever be close to it. For those that have had those hopes, and I hear a lot of people talking about it, you're dreaming. As long as you're riding rockets, you give that dream up. You're taking some risk. As Allison's laws of rockets, I've been saying these for over 20 years now. Yeah, about 30. Why? Because I used to develop rockets myself on my own, hybrid rockets, flew for high altitude balloons. So Allison's laws of rockets are rockets go boom. Law 2, rockets have always gone boom. Law 3, rockets always will go boom. My job is to try to make them go boom less often, but they always will, because that's the nature of rockets. Maybe one day we'll find a better way. Maybe hypersonics will get us closer to this goal. Maybe magnetic coil gun launch systems suspended from altitude airships, balloons, stratospheric cities like I'm designing for Venus could float also in the atmosphere of Earth quite easily. Could you string a big enough magnetic system in there? Well, time will tell. But yeah, a lot of people look for, rotating tethers might be interesting. The skyhook, space elevator, I ain't buying that for 2 seconds. I'll have to attack that in the future video. But I don't see that as having a prayer's chance. I know I just upset a lot of people with that, but I can go into more detail on that in the future. That I don't see. It'd be nice, but it's got some real severe issues, rather shocking issues, actually. Literally shocking. All right, my friends. Yeah, I've got a few links above the channel you can click. They're really from my sister channel, Green Greg's, but it still helps me. It helps me promote this channel. I will come out with space related products in the future and services for you. But for now, if you could click those, that would still help me. If you're interested in gardening, seeds, prepping, and that kind of stuff, if not, okay. So some few of you might be. So with all that I'm going to say, I hope you enjoyed the video, and very much I thank you for watching.